45 years ago, the Refugee Act of 1980 was signed into law here in the United States, and that was in part led by the church. And Christian and Missionary Alliance missionaries were on the front lines. In this video, you're going to hear from Connie Fairchild, who's a former VP of World Relief, and speaks to the heart of the Christian and Missionary Alliance and this new movement coming together to forge what would become and is still known as World Relief today. There is a long and a stated history in the Alliance with this organization. And with our partnership today on a national level, the Christian and Missionary Alliance and World Relief are continuing to lean in, just as we always have been. Check out this video.
Well, my parents were Grady and Evelyn Mangum. He was an ordained minister with the Christian Missionary Alliance, and they were missionaries in Vietnam for over 20 years. It was in 1975 when everything kind of started collapsing in Vietnam and the end of the war happened and many refugees began streaming out of Vietnam. The U.S. government was very dependent on the missionaries, knew my father well, and asked him to please help. Tin and Kim were the primary colleagues that Mom and Dad worked with to start World Relief's Refugee Resettlement Program. They worked in a motel, as I said, and Dad and Tin were in one motel room, and Mom and Kim and other women were in another, and they were calling churches. Mom and her group were calling churches, and Tin and Dad were establishing the Refugee Resettlement Program, managing the whole transfer from the field into America and setting up the whole organization with the U.S. government and other governments that they were cooperating with. She would call some people and say, would you do this? She'd get these lists from pastors or whoever. Would you take a refugee? She said first answer was always, no. Can't do that. One pastor said, no, we can't. We don't have the money. This is going to take money to sponsor a refugee. And our money's all allocated. Besides, we've been waiting years for a church parking lot. Mom said, parking lot? I can just hear her. Parking lot? These are people. The pastor said, call me tomorrow. So he had to go back to his board and tell them that they needed to do this. And he called within a couple of weeks, and he said it was the best decision we ever made.